Hello guys, thank you so much for coming out tonight. I really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's get started. So the name of the piece, just heads up, is Neptune Blues with the subtitle of The Wonder of Music. And so I thank you guys for letting me all get on my soapbox tonight and to talk about just music in general. The wonder of music. So here we go. I'll start with a quick, brief history of my musical background. So this is my family on the left. You'll see, and if you can see that far, the man in the white hat just over there is my grandfather. And so when I was 6 years old, my dad was driving home and in the neighborhood, and lo and behold, he finds a garage sale where there was a drum set, and it happened to be the same drum set that he played on as a kid. And so, much to my mom's dismay, he brought the drum set home and started teaching me on it. And then my grandfather, who had played in a band for a while, that was his job growing up, he played drums, so then we figured why not have him teach me. And so for about a year, I took lessons with my grandfather, learned everything from keeping time to playing some grooves on drum set. And then eventually, I moved on to Mrs. Karen, or Mrs. Nichols, who's in the audience today. So she was my teacher for, oh my goodness, a while, up until I think 6th grade. So probably from when I was in kindergarten, or 1st grade to 6th grade. I just learned everything from her about playing snare drum, playing drum set, and eventually marimba as well. So the picture on the right is me at one of my orchestra concerts with Mrs. Karen on the right, and then on the left is my piano teacher. His name is Rick Zelli. I've been taking piano with him since I think I was in 4th grade, so quite a while now. He's been incredible, just so supportive of me, and I'm going to be performing percussion tonight, not piano, but a huge part of my piece is thanks to Rick tonight, so yes. In searching the archives, of course, I figured I may as well show a picture or a video of me performing. This is when I was 10 years old. So 4 years of drumming, and here we go. So, there we go. Awesome. So that's a brief history of my childhood of music. And then going into high school, in 6th grade, I should say, I moved on to another percussion teacher. On this left photo, the far right side, you can see him right there. His name is Alan Stewart. He's the associate principal percussionist for the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra. I kind of work a lot with him, continue refining my skills, and then going into high school, he was like, hey Luke, you should join the St. Louis Symphony Youth Orchestra, which is in partnership with the actual SLSO, and it's a group of about 100 teens from around the area from ages 12 to 22, who come and meet every Saturday in the school year for 3 hours and play some classical music. And we have 3 concerts a year. So I auditioned, got in, and have been in it ever since. And it's been an incredible experience. It's where I've met the 2 friends that I'm performing with tonight, Kimmy and Nora, and then you can see Elias on the left too. He unfortunately could not make it tonight, couldn't help out, but I've got to work with him the past 2 years. He's been great. So this has been a huge part of my musical development. It's where I learned how to just move from marimba and drum set and learn to play all the percussion instruments in the orchestra. So it's been an incredible time. I've learned a lot. So here we go. And then I'd like to brag a bit about my 2 friends who are performing with me tonight. Nora, the one in the middle, she is going to the Berkeley School of Music to study voice. And then Kimmy, to the left of her, is going to Northwestern to study percussion. So 2 incredibly accomplished musicians. Quick more round of applause. piece now that we're going to be performing, Neptune Blues, and a bit about the inspiration for it, where I got my thoughts and ideas for it, and so here we go. So, the premise of the piece is it's a jazz trio, but written for a percussion ensemble. So, a jazz trio, for those that don't know, is a group of 3 jazz musicians that generally play piano, drum set, and the double bass. And so my goal of the piece was to take what is a traditional jazz trio and then translate that to a group of percussion instruments. So here we go. First up, we've got the drum set. That obviously was not too hard to portray with a percussion instrument. So yes, you can see it right there. And then I've got some, some videos that are gonna show the inspiration. So I've got 2 main grooves that are gonna be played on the drum set that are both inspired by musicians from history. So the first one is gonna be Kenny Clark. So Kenny Clark, right, that one at the top, he's attributed for coming up with the jazz groove that we all know today. Hopefully you guys know. It's on the ride cymbal, so he went from just taking the usual to what it is now. And you'll see that in this short video. Hard to tell, but so yes, Kenny Clark. He's the drummer that is attributed to the jazz groove on the ride cymbal that we have today. This next one is another favorite drummer of mine, Gene Krupa, who is famous, I'm sure you all know, for Sing Sing Sing. And so this opening to that song is actually going to be adapted in my performance of Neptune Blues. So if we start here. You will see that in this piece. Okay, so there's the drum set part of it. Pretty simple. Next, we're going to take a look at the double bass. So obviously, there's not quite an instrument like that in the group of percussion instruments. So when thinking about what to play for the double bass, I was thinking marimba. So you can see that over here, and I'll explain why I chose that in a sec. This is a quick video of Willie Dixon, who's a famous double bass player, revolutionary in the field of bass playing. And so this will give you an idea of what a double bass sounds like in a jazz trio. So what the double bass does is it keeps the bass line. It's in the name, pretty simple. And so what that's going to sound like is so that's a bass line. And in thinking of percussion instruments, you can, if you could tell from the video, the double bass has got, kind of that sharp tone. It's very low, and then it's got a bit of resonance to it. So the note, that means the note rings for a while. And so I chose marimba, as it's very similar to a xylophone, but it's a lot lower of a sound. So that's the F, that's the lowest note on this one. So you can see the note lasts for a little bit, it's got a little resonance, and then it's that lower sound that matches the bass. So you'll hear that a lot throughout the piece. And finally, the part of the piano. And so while I could have actually chosen a piano to play this, as a piano is a percussion instrument, I decided to choose this instrument here, which is called the vibraphone. And so, obviously, you probably have all heard of piano. This is Oscar Peterson, a famous jazz pianist. who actually had his own jazz trio, the Oscar Peterson Trio. So I'll play this for you, and then we'll explain. So that there was a little piano solo, and obviously they got back into that jazz group at the end there. So Oscar Peterson is really well known for his jazz licks, as we call them, or phrases played on in jazz. And so you'll hear some of those licks actually repeated in the piece, just a heads up. And so in choosing an instrument for the piano, I chose the vibraphone, as the vibraphone is also widely used throughout jazz as an instrument that, like a solo instrument. So it'll be generally found in different jazz groups, and it's usually like the star of the show. It's doing all the solos and the licks. So the vibraphone is actually very interesting. It looks like a marimba or like a xylophone, but it has a pedal here. And so when I play a note, it doesn't ring very well or very long. But if I push the pedal down, it's very similar to a pedal on a piano, and the ways in which you can use the pedal on the piano, it'll lengthen the note and allow for all sorts of different colors and textures within your solo. So yes, that's why I chose the vibraphone here. And so that's the general layout of the piece. Now, if you don't mind me showing this, this is, while it may seem cheesy, this is actually a way that I like to think of jazz. So I mentioned this is a jazz trio piece. It's going to be jazz. And so I will briefly explain the reason behind this. So if you don't know, this is from the movie Ratatouille, and this is the famous him making soup. Here he goes. All this. Adding all sorts of foods, textures, flavors. Coincidentally, there's jazz music in the background. So there you have it. This is a way that I like to think about jazz. So what jazz does is it kind of takes all these different flavors, different sounds, and it'll bring them into one. And though many of you might not know this, jazz is actually the beginning of rock music. So as we progress throughout the 1900s, this jazz that we see kind of generally over time turns into the rock music that we all know and love today. So, yes, that's what I think of when I think of jazz. You've got the vibraphone that rings, you've got the drum set with all sorts of different sounds, and then you've got the marimba there for the bass line, just adding all of these different things, putting them to one, and then there you have it. And that is also just a microcosm of music in general, about the beauty of music, how you can add all of these different sounds and textures together to get what we have today. So next, I'd like to talk about one thing that's kind of featured in my piece. So I said it's called Neptune Blues. Obviously, there's going to be a theme of space throughout it. And so, I apologize if you don't want to get into a theory lesson, but I'm going to give you a quick theory lesson. So, the way a chord works is you have multiple notes, right? And so, in a key, so there's all sorts of different keys. On the piano or vibraphone marimba, they actually all have the same keyboard. And so, this piece is in C. And C has 7 notes to it. C, D, E, let me play this with a melody. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, So, this little diagram here shows that all of these keys have a number associated with them. So, if we're in the key of C, the 1 is going to be the C. And if we're in the key, then if we go up a note, the D would be the 2, E would be the 3, F would be the 4, and G would be the 5. So, you'll see, when I play them together, you have a C chord. And so, you'll notice the sharp 5 there, or the hashtag 5 sign. That means a sharp 5. And so, I said that the key of C had 7 notes to it, right? Well, those are, again, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then you have all of the black keys up there that do not, they don't make up the C major scale, but you can add them in, and when you do, it's a different number. So, I have a C, which is the 1, a D, which is the 2. If I want either a sharp 1, I would go up a half step, which is that C sharp right between the 1 and what would be the 2 there. In this case, we're going to look at the 5, okay? The G, if we go up 1, a whole step, we're going to get an A, which would be the 6 of the chord. But if we go in between and play the G sharp, that's going to be called the sharp 5, okay? So, when you put those notes together, those 4 notes, what originally was the C major chord, we now add in the sharp 5, and that is what's known as the space chord. So, it allows for dissonance, which is the sound you get when you have 2 notes that are close together, and they kind of clash, right? That's the Jaws theme right there. So that's dissonance, and when we add that into a chord such as this, it creates that eerie, mystical, mysterious sound. And you'll actually find that throughout all sorts of different space movies, this very chord is used. Star Wars, any other space movie, you name it. So, you will find that that is a big part of the piece. So, we're going to move on. Okay, so, I'm kind of a math guy, and so I couldn't give this presentation without associating music and math. So I'm sure you all have heard the stereotype that jazz is, you can play any note and it won't sound wrong in jazz, which is fairly true. There's some truth to that. But what a lot of people don't realize is that there's actually a whole lot of mathematics in jazz. And that would be the number of measures, right? So when you play a piece of music, it's going to be given a time signature, right? And then that time signature is going to dictate how long a measure is. And a measure is a bar of music. And so what I'm going to be playing today is a spin on the C jam blues, which is a type of jazz groove that follows this structure. 4 measures, and then 4 more measures. It's also called the 12-bar blues, as 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals 12. And when you break that down, you get 4 measures where it's 1, 2, 3, 4, another 4, and then so on. And then you'll see below this, those letters are going to be associated with the key or the chord that is played at each measure. And so, for the C jam blues, we're going to play a C chord for the first measure. The second measure is going to be the 4. If you can put 2 and 2 together, this was explained earlier, which is F. We're going to go back to C for the next 2 measures. Then, for the next set of 4, we're going to do an F, 2 Fs, and then 2 Cs. And then finally, for this last one, we have a G chord, an F chord, and 2 C chords. So it's fairly simple, the C jam blues. the 12-bar blues. But you'll see what I played you from Oscar Peterson that was actually C-Jam Blues, and you saw how complex that was. So you can actually, just like the Ratatouille video, take all sorts of different textures and then fit them within this structure, and you get jazz, right? The C-Jam Blues. And so what seems to be just a bunch of random notes and sounds actually all comes together to make up this very mathematical structure. And you'll find this all throughout jazz. For example, I talked about Oscar Peterson's solos earlier. A solo, just a jazz lick or anything, actually is timed as well. And so you'll hear a term in jazz called trading fours, where an instrument will play a solo for 4 measures, and then another instrument will play a solo for 4 measures. So again, it may sound all crazy and it's like super cool, but it's all bound by this structure of mathematics, and usually of 4s in jazz, you'll see. So, taking that all together, you'll see in this piece the C-Jam Blues. You'll see the bass being portrayed as the marimba, the piano being portrayed by the xylophone, by the vibraphone, and then the drum set, obviously, by the drum set. And that is all. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy Neptune Blues. so much for coming out tonight. I hope you enjoyed our little extra flavor there of the buckets. And I hope that just you were able to experience the joy and the wonder of music tonight. So there you have it. There's Neptune Blues, and there are some cookies out in the lobby for you. Thank you again for coming.